Ma'am, this hotel doesn't offer day rates. You might try the motel on Peachtree Industrial. I have a reservation. Suite 1140. Guy a suite? That's cute. Suites start at $900 a night, and we require a card on file that actually clears. Guy, check the name. Kinlaw. Guy. Honey, I've been checking names at this desk for 8 years. I know who belongs in this lobby and who wandered in from the bus station. Gah. You'll want to remember how this conversation went. Is that supposed to scare me? Raymond, can you walk her out? We're expecting real guests. Gah. Stop. Nobody touches her luggage. That woman signs my paycheck. She signs all of our paychecks. Gah. 45 seconds of silence. One sentence that emptied a career. Have you ever walked into a room where every face told you that you didn't belong and known something none of them knew? 2 hours earlier, the city of Atlanta was still shaking off the heat. August light turned the skyline copper, and the air tasted like hot asphalt and magnolia. On the 6th floor of a modest apartment building in West End, Daphne Kinlaw stood in front of a bathroom mirror braiding her hair into 2 thick plaits the way her mother used to do on church mornings. She could have gone to the salon. She could have worn the Cartier watch sitting in its velvet box on the dresser. She reached past it for a Timex with a scratched face, the one her father had given her when she graduated from Spelman 22 years ago. The watch still kept perfect time. So did Daphne, 26. She had been an assistant revenue manager at a mid-tier hotel chain in Memphis, the youngest person in the building with a key to the analytics room. She had a gift for reading occupancy patterns the way some people read weather, sensing a dip weeks before it showed on a spreadsheet. Her reports saved the company $4 million in one fiscal year. Her reward was a handshake, a gift card to a steakhouse, and the slow realization that nobody in that boardroom would ever see her as more than the help who happened to be good with numbers. So she left. She rented a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in College Park, maxed out 2 credit cards, and started consulting. One small hotel in Macon hired her to fix their pricing. Revenue jumped 18% in a quarter. The owner told a friend. The friend told 2 more. Within 3 years, Daphne Kinlaw ran a boutique hospitality advisory with no office and no website. Just a phone that never stopped ringing and a reputation that walked into rooms before she did. By 35, she had moved from advising to acquiring. Distressed properties mostly, places with good bones and bad management. She bought her first hotel at a foreclosure auction in Savannah, renovated it with her own contractor crew, and flipped it for triple. Then she stopped flipping. She started keeping. Kinlaw Hospitality Group now held a quiet portfolio of 19 properties across the Southeast. No magazine profiles, no conference keynotes. Her name lived in loan documents and title transfers, not on Instagram. 6 days ago, she had signed the largest acquisition of her career, the Bellcourt Grand, a 340-room luxury hotel on Peachtree Street in Buckhead, one of Atlanta's most prestigious addresses. The previous owner, a real estate trust bleeding cash, had sold at a discount that made Daphne's accountant laugh out loud. The wire cleared on Thursday. The announcement was scheduled for Wednesday at noon, which gave her exactly one window. One Tuesday morning where she could walk into that lobby as nobody at all. Her grandmother, a woman who cleaned hotel rooms in Montgomery for 31 years, had a saying she repeated every time Daphne complained about a rude guest. Baby, a hotel tells you everything about itself in the first 60 seconds. Watch the door. That's where the truth lives. Daphne wanted to see the Bellcourt's door. Not as the new owner. As a black woman with 2 braids, a canvas tote bag, and a Timex watch walking in off the street in August. She pulled on a plain linen shirt, khaki pants with a crease ironed in that morning, and flat sandals. She looked like a school teacher on summer break. That was the point. She tucked a leather portfolio under her arm, the one that held her reservation confirmation, the title transfer, and a handwritten list of every department head's name, and walked out into the heat. The Bellcourt Grand occupied a full city block at the corner of Peachtree and Lenox. Its facade was Georgia marble, cream and cool even in August. Brass revolving doors caught the morning sun and threw it back. Through the glass, Daphne could see the lobby, a double-height atrium with a living wall of ferns climbing 3 stories, a black granite fountain murmuring at its center, and enough fresh flowers to stock a funeral. It was beautiful the way expensive things are beautiful, designed to make certain people feel welcome and other people feel warned. The revolving doors moved easily for a man in a linen blazer, carrying a garment bag. They moved easily for a couple with matching roller cases and the particular confidence of people who had never been questioned at a front desk. Daphne pushed through behind them. The door was heavy. Nobody held it. Cool air hit her like a wall. The lobby smelled of white tea and cedar. The signature scent piped through the ventilation system, a detail she already knew from the acquisition files. Her sandals were quiet on the marble. The couple ahead of her glided toward the front desk and were greeted with a smile so wide it could have been measured with a ruler. Daphne approached next. Behind the front desk stood Heather Stiles, guest services supervisor, 8 years with the Bellcourt, the longest tenured front-of-house employee in the building. She had a French manicure, a name badge in brushed gold, and a smile she deployed like a drawbridge, up for some, down for others. She watched Daphne cross the lobby the way a cat watches a bird land on the wrong side of the window. By the time Daphne reached the counter, the smile was already packed away. "Checking in?" Heather said. The words were correct. The music was wrong. The tone said, "Convince me." "Good morning," Daphne said. "Daphne Kinlaw. I have a reservation for suite 1140. Heather's fingers hovered above her keyboard but did not land. Suite 1140 was the owner's suite, 1,200 square feet, a terrace overlooking Buckhead, a baby grand piano nobody played. It was not a room that walked in wearing flat sandals. Suite 1140, Heather repeated, the way you repeat a child's answer to make them hear how silly it sounds. That's our premium suite. It starts at $900 a night. I'm aware of the rate, and we require a valid credit card on file for incidentals. One that clears. I have a card. Heather's eyes traveled from the braids to the canvas tote to the Timex. She did not type anything. She adjusted a vase of white orchids on the counter instead, aligning it with the kind of care she had not extended to the guest in front of her. "Ma'am, I'm going to be honest with you, because I'd rather save you the embarrassment. This hotel doesn't offer day rates. If you're looking for something more in your budget, there's a very nice motel on Peachtree Industrial. They're pet-friendly too." She said pet-friendly the way someone offers directions to the exit. A bellhop named Kendrick Osey, 23, 3 months on the job, was folding luggage tags at the bell stand 6 feet away. He heard the whole thing. His hands stopped moving. He had watched Heather sort guests before, smiles for some, silence for others, and he had learned to keep his head down because Heather wrote the schedule and the schedule decided whether he made rent. But something about this one, the quiet way the woman stood there, the way she didn't flinch, made his stomach turn over. "There's been a mistake," Daphne said. Her voice was level, almost gentle. "The reservation is under Kinlaw, Kinlaw. If you check the system, you'll find it. I don't need to check the system." Heather's smile returned, bright and hard as porcelain. "I've worked this desk for 8 years. I know a sweet guest when I see one." She leaned forward, lowering her voice to the particular whisper that carries farther than shouting. "And sweetheart, you're not it." Someone at the concierge desk pretended to study a brochure. A woman on the lobby sofa looked up from her phone, then down again, the reflex of someone who has decided that whatever is happening is not her business. Daphne reached into her portfolio and produced a printed confirmation. Bellcourt Grand letterhead, reservation number, suite 1140, 2 nights, prepaid in full. She laid it on the granite counter. Heather picked it up between 2 fingers and turned it over without reading it. "Anyone can print a confirmation page," she said. "We had someone last month with a fake booking try to get into the spa. Do you know what that costs us? I'm protecting this hotel. You're refusing to look at a valid reservation. I'm using my judgment. 8 years of it. Your judgment, Daphne said quietly, is going to be very expensive today. Heather laughed. It was a real laugh, surprised and delighted, the laugh of someone who has never once been wrong in their own story. Expensive? For who? Are you going to call corporate? She put air quotes around the word. Go ahead. I answer to Mr. Noland, the general manager, and Mr. Noland trusts me to protect the guest experience, which is exactly what I'm doing. She slid the confirmation back across the counter without unfolding it. Now, she said, bright as a game show host, would you like me to call you a cab, or can you find the bus stop on your own? A man in a polo shirt at the check-in kiosk snorted. Someone near the elevator bay whispered something to a companion. Phones did not come out yet, but the lobby had tilted. Everyone knew something was happening. Most of them had chosen a side without moving a muscle. Kendrick set down his luggage tags. He crossed the 6 feet between the bell stand and the front desk as if the floor were made of glass. Excuse me, ma'am, he said to Daphne, his voice low. Can I get you some water? Or I can take your bag to the lounge while they sort this out. Daphne looked at him. He was young. His name tag was slightly crooked. His hands were shaking. Thank you, Kendrick, she said. Water would be nice. Kendrick. Heather's voice cracked across the lobby like a whip. We don't serve walk-ins who haven't checked in. Get back to the bell stand before I write this up. She has a confirmation, Kendrick said. He didn't raise his voice, but he didn't move either. She has a piece of paper. Heather turned to him fully now, arms crossed, and you have a probationary period that ends when I say it ends. Back to your stand now. Kendrick's jaw tightened. He looked at Daphne. She gave him the smallest nod, the kind that says, I see you and go protect yourself at the same time. He retreated, but not far. He stayed at the end of the bell stand, pretending to sort luggage carts, his phone half out of his vest pocket. Daphne set her portfolio on the counter. I'd like you to call Philip Nolan's office. Something shifted behind Heather's eyes. Using the general manager's first name was not nothing. But 8 years behind this desk had built an arithmetic in her head. The cost of bothering the GM for a false alarm was her credibility. The cost of dismissing a nobody was zero, and everything about this woman, the braids, the tote bag, the flat sandals, read nobody. Mr. Noland, Heather said, almost charmed, is in a revenue meeting. He doesn't take interruptions. Especially not for this. 1 phone call, 30 seconds. Then I'll be out of your lobby if I'm wrong. You're already wrong, honey. The question is whether you leave with some dignity or with an escort. She reached under the counter and pressed a button. A moment later, her voice came through the lobby speaker, clipped and professional. Security to the front desk, please. Guest disturbance. She hung up and folded her hands and looked at Daphne with the warm, practiced sympathy of someone delivering bad news they enjoy. You wanted me to make a phone call, she said. I made one. 14 floors above them, in a glass-walled conference room, Philip Noland was reviewing third-quarter projections with his operations team when his assistant, a woman named Bree, appeared in the doorway. Bree never interrupted revenue meetings. Her face said she was interrupting this one. She crossed the room, leaned beside his ear, and whispered 7 words, "The new owner is being thrown out." Philip Noland went pale in a way that air conditioning could not explain. Bree had gotten a text from the lobby coffee bar. The barista bought her chai every morning. The barista sat 4 feet from the bell stand. The bell stand was where Kendrick Osei had just sent a message that read, "Front desk refusing a black woman. Says she has a suite." Heather won't check the system, calling security. Bree had pulled up the reservation, then the ownership transfer filing. Then she had interrupted a revenue meeting for the first time in 6 years. Nolan said 2 words, "Stall them." Then he was out of his chair and moving. Back in the lobby, Raymond Trask arrived with the unhurried pace of a security officer whose most dramatic moment this year had been a parking garage fender bender. He was 54, broad, quiet, with reading glasses on a chain around his neck. He assessed the scene in 3 seconds. A woman at the counter, calm, holding a portfolio. A supervisor behind the desk, flushed, holding a posture. He had been in hotel security for 11 years. He knew the difference between a problem and a performance. "Ma'am," he said to Daphne, not unkindly. "What's going on?" "I have a reservation. Suite 1140. I've asked her to check the system. She won't." Raymond looked at Heather. "Did you check the system?" "I don't need to check the system, Raymond. Look at her." Those 3 words hung in the lobby like smoke. Look at her. Not look at her reservation. Not look at her confirmation. Look at her. At the braids and the tote bag and the sandals and the skin. What he saw was a woman standing very still, which in his experience was the opposite of a disturbance. He had also seen the printed confirmation on the counter, folded but visible. "Heather," he said, "it takes 10 seconds to check a name, and it takes 10 seconds to let a scam artist into a $900 suite. Do you want that on your badge?" "Because I don't want it on my desk." Raymond exhaled. He was 3 years from his pension. His daughter was starting at Georgia State in the fall. Heather wrote incident reports that went to the GM. He had watched her bury a valet attendant last spring with 3 write-ups in 2 weeks. "Ma'am," he said to Daphne, "maybe I can walk you to the business center, and we can sort this out from there." "The business center," Daphne repeated, "instead of the front desk, just to clear things up. You mean to clear me out of the blah but without making a scene?" Raymond didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew. Heather seized the pause. She came around the counter, heels sharp on the marble, and planted herself in front of Daphne's portfolio as if it were evidence in a trial she was winning. "Let's see what's actually in here," she said, and pulled the leather folder off the counter before Daphne could reach it. "Give that back." Heather was already opening it. Papers slid loose. She shook the portfolio like a woman emptying crumbs from a picnic basket. Pages scattered across the marble, the confirmation, a printed email, and beneath them, a heavy cream document with a notary seal that skidded under a luggage cart. "Junk," Heather announced. "Printouts and junk. Like I said." Daphne looked at her papers spread across 30 feet of lobby floor, the email from the seller's attorney, the title transfer with her name in bold type across the top, the building inspection summary. Her entire ownership of this hotel lay face up on marble that she technically already owned, and not one person in the lobby had read a single word. She began to collect them. She had to bend low, reach past chair legs, stretch for pages that had traveled under the edge of a sofa. Her knees hit the cold floor, her linen shirt pulled from her waistband. Every movement was visible to 50 people. A businessman near the elevator averted his eyes. A woman with a toddler on her hip watched for 3 full seconds and then turned away. Kendrick was across the lobby in 4 strides, kneeling, gathering pages. "Kendrick Osei." Heather's voice was ice. "Pick up 1 more page and I'll have you terminated before lunch. Assisting a trespasser." That's what the write-up will say. Kendrick froze. 3 months on the job. His mother's medical bills. A lease he had signed 2 weeks ago. "It's all right," Daphne told him quietly. "Put them down. You've done enough." He set the pages where she could reach them. Then, still kneeling, he whispered, "I text Bree. She's Mr. Nolan's assistant. She comes to the coffee bar every morning. She always answers." Daphne's hands paused for 1 breath. "Then we wait," she whispered back. "Go protect your job." Heather watched from behind the counter, narrating for whoever would listen. This is what happens when you're too polite in hospitality. You get people who think a printout and a story get them into any room they want. I've seen it a dozen times. They always have a story. She pulled out her phone and held it sideways, recording Daphne on her knees gathering papers. "For the incident report," she said sweetly. "Smile, hon. You're going in the training file." She zoomed in on the tote bag. "And look at this. Canvas bag from a farmer's market. If you're going to pretend you belong at the Bellcourt, at least carry a real handbag." A guest near the fountain had his phone out too, but he was not pointing it at Daphne. He was pointing it at Heather. Raymond shifted his weight. The itch was back. He had been in enough rooms to know that the quiet ones were almost never the problem. This woman had not raised her voice once. She had produced a printed confirmation with the hotel's own letterhead, and she had asked for one phone call. "Heather," he said, "let me just call upstairs." "One call? One call?" Heather lowered her phone and stared at him. "Raymond, sweetheart, do you know what happens if we ring the GM during his revenue meeting for this? That's your job and mine. Is she worth your pension?" It was a lie wearing a seatbelt. Safe, sensible, impossible to argue with. Raymond's itch lost to his mortgage. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the building." Daphne placed the last page in her portfolio and stood. She looked at Raymond, not at Heather. At him. "What's your name?" "Raymond Trask." "Raymond Trask. I want you to remember that you were polite. That's going to matter." From behind the desk, Heather barked a laugh. "Oh my God, is she giving speeches now? Raymond, get her out. I'm calling the police in 60 seconds if she doesn't move." She held up her phone, finger hovering over the screen. Trespassing. Criminal trespassing in a luxury hotel. "Your choice, sweetheart." The woman on the lobby sofa finally spoke. "She hasn't done anything wrong." Heather didn't even look at her. Money got smiles at this desk. Conscience got air conditioning and nothing else. "You'll remember this morning for a very long time," Daphne said. She said it to Heather, and her voice was not angry. It was the voice of someone reading a forecast. Heather slapped the words away with volume. "Out. Raymond, now, or I press this button and we do this the embarrassing way." The lobby held its breath. 50 people, 3 phones recording, a woman with a leather portfolio hugged to her chest. The fountain kept murmuring. The fern wall kept climbing. 14 floors of luxury stacked silently above a single point of cruelty. Raymond exhaled through his nose. He stepped forward. His hand reached for the door to hold it open, to usher her out with whatever politeness he could still afford. And then the elevator chimed. The man who came through the elevator doors was Philip Noland, general manager of the Bellcourt Grand, 51 years old, 23 years in luxury hospitality, a man who did not run. Philip Noland was running. His blazer was unbuttoned. His reading glasses bounced against his chest. His face had the color of someone who had just watched his career flash before his eyes on a 14-floor elevator ride. "Stop." The word hit the marble, and everything in the lobby stopped with it. Raymond's hand froze on the door handle. Heather's phone sagged in her grip. Nobody touches her luggage. Nobody touches her. Philip's chest heaved. He braced one hand on the concierge desk and forced the next sentence out between breaths. "That woman signs my paycheck. She signs all of our paychecks." Silence has a texture. It is the fountain suddenly enormous. It is a toddler babbling into a void where no adult dares speak. It is 50 people doing arithmetic at the same time and arriving at the same unbearable answer. Heather's phone slipped from her hand and hit the marble screen first. The crack was the loudest sound in the lobby. Philip straightened, turned to the room, and made it official. "Everyone, this is Daphne Kinlaw, founder and managing principal of Kinlaw Hospitality Group." He swallowed. As of last Thursday, the sole owner of this hotel. He let that settle. My employer, all of our employer. Heads turned toward Daphne the way satellite dishes find a signal. She stood exactly where she had been standing for the last 35 minutes. Same braids, same linen shirt, same Timex. The only thing that had changed was everyone else. Philip crossed the lobby and stopped in front of her. Up close, she could see a vein pulsing in his temple. "Mrs. Kinlaw, I am deeply, deeply sorry. We had no indication you were arriving unannounced," and he stopped himself. He heard the sentence and knew there was no version of it that helped. "No, there's no version of this where timing is the point." "No," Daphne agreed. "There isn't." Her eyes moved past him to the edge of the lobby, where one of her pages had slid under a planter. "That one traveled the farthest," she said. "You can start with that." Philip Noland got on his knees in a $1,200 suit and reached under a planter in front of 50 witnesses. When he stood, he was holding a single cream page. He could not help reading it. Bellcourt Grand Asset Purchase Agreement. Purchaser, Daphne M. Kinlaw. He carried it back with both hands and placed it on her portfolio. Then every gaze in the lobby slid to the front desk. Heather had not moved. The performer's posture was gone. She looked smaller behind the granite, as if the counter had grown around her. Miss Kinlaw. Her voice came out wrong, a half octave, too high. I didn't know. Nobody told me. If someone had told me who you were. I know, Daphne said. That's the problem. She took one step forward and let the words land in the quiet. You didn't need to know who I was. You needed to check a reservation for a guest. The first takes 1 minute. You couldn't manage 30 seconds. Heather grabbed for handholds. Sir, she turned to Philip. Sir, she refused to leave. I followed policy. The security procedure clearly states, did the security procedure tell you to dump her documents on the floor? Philip's voice was very quiet. I watched the cameras on the ride down, Heather. 2 angles. Both looked the same. The phrase moved through the lobby like a draft. 2 cameras, the ceiling and the desk. The morning had been recorded from every direction, and every direction told the same story. Raymond stepped back from the door. His hand fell to his side. Ma'am, he said, his voice rough, I apologize. I should have made the call. It was one call. It was, Daphne said. But you were also polite, and you tried. She paused. Both things are true, Raymond Trask. Both will be remembered. From the bell stand came a sound no one could blame him for. Kendrick Ozzie exhaled a laugh into his fist, eyes wet, his whole body releasing something he had been holding since the first minute. Philip checked his watch. 10:14. He cleared his throat. Mrs. Kinlaw, I have a conference room set up on the 14th floor. The department heads are. He struggled for the word. They're very eager to meet you. I imagine they are. Daphne set her portfolio straight and turned toward the elevator. Then she paused and looked back at the front desk one last time. Heather Stiles, she said. Stiles. She did not smile. Don't go far. Spelling matters, especially on documents. And she walked toward the executive elevator while the lobby parted in front of her like a held breath finally released. The elevator was paneled in mahogany and smelled like cedar. Philip held the door and stood in the corner like a man sharing a cage with something very calm and very dangerous. 14th floor, he said. The numbers climbed. Daphne watched them and said nothing. She had waited 18 years for rooms like this. She could wait 14 floors. The conference room doors were already open. 9 department heads stood when she walked in. Standing was easy now, manage it. Philip introduced her. The room sat down when she sat down. She declined coffee. She had one item to add before the agenda. Pull up the lobby cameras, she said. This morning, 9:35 to 10:10. Both angles. Somebody from IT was conferenced in. The wall screen blinked, and for the next several minutes, 9 of the most senior people in the hotel watched their own front desk in silence. They watched the confirmation turned over without being read. They heard Sweetheart and Honey in crisp lobby audio. They watched the portfolio shaken empty and their new owner kneeling on marble to collect her own documents while an employee filmed it. Nobody spoke. The head of housekeeping put her hand over her mouth. The director of legal started typing notes with the specific speed of someone calculating exposure. When the screen went dark, Daphne let the silence work. Then she folded her hands. I'm not starting our partnership with a lecture, she said. The footage gave it. Here's what happens next. The employee at that desk is suspended as of this hour pending a formal review, not terminated in anger. Reviewed properly. We follow process, even for people who didn't. Heads nodded. Downstairs, it was already happening. By 11 that morning, Heather Stiles was sitting in a small office off the service corridor, a paper cup of water in front of her, mascara tracking down her cheeks. I was following procedure, she kept saying. Everyone profiles at the front desk. That's the job. You all know it. The only difference is, this one turned out to be the owner. It was the most honest thing she had said all morning. It was also a confession spoken inside a building where she had just been informed the cameras record audio. The HR director wrote it down word for word. Raymond Trask was interviewed at 11:40. He did not bring anyone with him. He sat down, set his radio on the table, and told the truth about everything. The lady asked for one phone call. I should have made it. Heather told me the woman had been harassing her. That wasn't true. I watched the timeline afterward. Miss Kinlaw walked in at 9:37, and Heather was on her inside of a minute. Anything else? The HR director asked. Yes, the bellhop, Kendrick. Don't let anything happen to him. He was the only one of us who did the right thing. The formal review took 11 days. What it found was worse than one bad morning. 4 complaints against Heather Stiles in 6 years, each one quietly shelved by a supervisor who played tennis with her on Wednesdays, a guest with a hearing aid whom she had mocked to a colleague within earshot, an elderly man checking in alone whom she had asked whether he could actually afford the rate while his grandchildren stood behind him, and 9 written warnings against Kendrick Osai, every single one filed within 48 hours of Kendrick helping a guest that Heather had frozen out. The pattern sat in the file like a fingerprint. Heather was terminated for cause on a humid Thursday. She cleaned out her locker while a temp restocked the orchids at the front desk. No security escort, no public scene. Daphne had been specific. Process, not spectacle. The consequences arrived anyway, the slow, honest way. The luxury staffing agency that had placed Heather dropped her within 2 weeks after 3 of its largest hotel clients called asking questions. Front desks run on reputation. Hers now entered rooms before she did. She posted a video apology the following week when her severance negotiation stalled. She was sorry if anyone felt offended. She had been under enormous pressure. She was, she said, actually a victim of a rush to judgment. The internet did not buy it. Neither did the review board. The clip of her saying everyone profiles at the front desk had already been entered into the record. Some apologies are doors. Hers was a mirror, and she never managed to look into it. What Daphne did next surprised everyone who expected a lawsuit. She had grounds. The legal director confirmed it in a memo that was not supposed to leave the 14th floor. Discrimination, public humiliation, multiple camera angles. She could have owned Heather Stiles' future the way she owned the hotel. She declined. Suing her gets me a settlement, she told the department heads. I don't need a settlement. I need the next woman who walks into a lobby like mine to be treated like she paid for the room. Settlements don't do that. Training does. Hiring does. A lower front desk does. So the Bellcourt announced the Open Door Initiative, funded with $1.5 million of the hotel's operating budget and chaired by the owner herself. Every guest-facing employee retrained, not a webinar. Real sessions with real people, people in wheelchairs, people with accents, people in thrift store clothes, people with service dogs, sitting across a table and telling their stories. Every entrance audited. The lobby was partially rebuilt that fall. The new front desk had a low wing where a seated guest could look a receptionist in the eye. The signature scent stayed. The velvet rope came down. The hiring pledge made the hospitality trade press. Within 18 months, 15% of the Bellcourt's front-of-house hires would come from communities historically underrepresented in luxury hospitality. Within 3 years, every Kinlaw property in the Southeast. The initiative needed a director of guest experience to run the flagship lobby. The posting might as well have had a name printed on it. Kendrick Osai stopped folding luggage tags in November. He started the new role the same week he finished his bachelor's degree online, at nearly 3 times his bellhop wage. His first official act was framing a photograph for the wall behind the new front desk. It showed a glass of ice water sitting on a granite counter. No one who hadn't been there that morning understood it. Everyone who had been there never forgot it. Raymond Trask kept his job. The review board noted that he had been lied to, that he had tried to make the call, and that he had told the complete truth afterward at cost to himself. He became something better than blameless. He became the man who tells the story. Every new security hire at the Bellcourt got the same speech on their first morning. Someday, somebody's going to walk in here looking like they don't belong, and they're going to own the building. Treat every person like that's today. The man in the polo shirt, the one who had snorted when Heather told Daphne to find a bus stop, turned out to be a corporate travel coordinator for a firm that sent 40,000 room nights a year through Atlanta. His firm quietly moved that contract to a competitor the following quarter. Nobody at the Bellcourt chased the account. The footage made the decision for them. Karma, Daphne noted, did not require her supervision. It just required cameras. In February, the Atlanta Business Chronicle put her on the cover, not in the linen shirt. In the armor, tailored navy blazer, silk blouse, the Cartier watch out of its velvet box for the first time in years, photographed in front of the rebuilt lobby. The headline read, "The owner they tried to throw out." She kept a copy in her office, not framed, just in a drawer. She had not done any of this for a magazine cover, but she did allow herself one small ceremony. The orchids that Heather had aligned every morning like soldiers were replaced with a vase of magnolias. Daphne arranged them herself the first time. They smelled like Montgomery. 6 months later, on another Tuesday morning, the heat pressed down on Atlanta the way it always does in August. The Bellcourt Grand looked almost the same from the street. Same marble facade, same brass doors, same 14 floors stacked above Peachtree Street. Almost. The revolving doors had been widened. A side entrance with automatic sensors now opened without anyone needing to push. The new front desk curved low on one side like an invitation. Behind it sat a receptionist named Alma, hired through the Open Door Initiative. She was 25, the daughter of Haitian immigrants, the first person in her family to work in a luxury hotel. Her smile was real, and it was for everyone. At 9:40, the side door opened, and an old man came through slowly, leaning on a cane, a plastic grocery bag in his free hand. His shirt was buttoned to the collar despite the heat. He looked up at the fern wall, the way people look at places they are not sure they are allowed to be in. Alma waved him over. "Good morning, sir. Welcome in. How can we help you today?" the old man explained, apologizing twice, that his granddaughter had bought him a gift certificate for afternoon tea. "Very small," he said. "Probably not worth the trouble." "It's absolutely worth the trouble," Alma said, already typing. "You're in the system. Can I get you some water while you wait? The iced tea here is famous." 2 minutes later, the man sat by the fountain, holding a cold glass, watching the ferns climb the wall, melting the heat off his shoulders onto marble that had survived worse. Nobody filmed him. Nobody would ever have a reason to. 14 floors up, Daphne Kinlaw watched the lobby feed on the corner of her monitor. She did that some mornings, not looking for problems, just watching the experiment run. Her office had no motivational posters, just 2 objects on the shelf behind her desk. A framed photograph of a glass of ice water and a printed confirmation page, the one that had spent a morning face down on a granite counter, now mounted face up behind glass, permanently. People sometimes asked her if she ever thought about that receptionist. She always gave the same answer. "I think about the front desk," she said. "People like her exist because desks like that allow them. I couldn't fix her. I could fix the desk." The acquisition that made her the owner had been worth a number the trade press loved to print. But ask anyone who was in the lobby that Tuesday what the real story was, and they won't quote a number. They'll tell you about a woman in a linen shirt who was told she didn't belong in a hotel she already owned. And they'll tell you what she did with that hotel afterward. Because the loudest revenge isn't a lawsuit or a firing or a viral clip. It's a wider door. It's a lower counter. It's a stranger with a cane being handed a cold glass before anyone asks what he's worth. Philip Nolan still runs the Bellcourt and tells the story of the morning he sprinted out of an elevator with his glasses bouncing off his chest. He calls it the most important run of his career. Nobody disagrees. Kendrick manages the front of house and trains every new hire with one rule taped inside the welcome binder. "You will never get in trouble here for kindness. Not on my floor." And Raymond Trask, 2 years from retirement, still walks his rounds. He stops at the front desk most mornings, checks the vase, checks the temperature. "The lobby runs warmer these days," he says. "Not the thermostat, just warmer." Okay, real talk. It's me, the narrator. I told you this story because I've watched people get measured in 10 seconds their entire lives. The worn shoes, the wrong bag, the wrong face. And the wildest part? The cost of basic respect is $0. Zero. Be the Kendrick. Always. So here's my question for you. If you had been standing in that lobby at 9:37 on a Tuesday morning before anyone knew her name, what would you have done? Be honest with yourself. Drop your answer in the comments because I read every single one, and the honest ones are always the best. If this story hit you somewhere real, share it with someone who needs the reminder that you never know who just walked through the door. And subscribe because there are more stories like this one, true to life in all the ways that count, waiting to be told. Until next time, check your front desk and keep the door open.